Louisiana's Way Home, chapter 27 and 28. In our last chapter, Burke took Louisiana up to a very tall area up a tree. And they were looking at the stars, and because he wanted to give her time to think. She's contemplating. She doesn't know. Does she want to go back to Florida where her friends are, or does she want to stay and become a member of Burke's family? So, the conclusion of the book. We all went to the carnival, me and Burke and Betty Allen and the father Burke and the grandfather Burke, and I still had not made up my mind whether I would stay or whether I would leave. I just could not decide. But the good news is that the world-famous Betty Allen cake raffle was set up on the lawn in front of the Lost Shepherd Church. The cakes were arranged end to end on a long table, and they were beautiful to behold. There was a large glass fishbowl on the table, too, and every time somebody bought a raffle ticket, Betty Allen ripped the ticket in half and put one half into the bowl and handed the other half to the person who hoped to win a cake. The piano had been rolled out from the social hall, and Miss Lulu was playing what she must have thought was an appropriate cake raffling song. It occurred to me that no matter what I did, I just could not escape from Miss Lulu and her attempts at making music. It cost $1 for every ticket, and Burke Allen, the grandfather, gave me $5, so I could purchase 5 tickets because I really wanted to win a cake. I would buy you all of them cakes, Doodlebug, said Grandfather Burke. I would buy you every last one of them. You don't even got to throw your tiny head into the ring. All you got to do is say the word and I will buy them all up for you. But I wanted to enter the raffle. I wanted to throw my tiny head into the ring. I wanted to take my chances. Miss Lulu continued to play music, pounding away at what sounded to me like a cake raffle dirge, until all the tickets were sold, and then Betty Allen said, "We have 17 cakes, ladies and gentlemen, and I will call 17 winning numbers." People applauded, and I clapped too, and then I looked down at my tickets. Were they winning tickets? I could not tell. I studied them very carefully. Betty Allen cleared her throat. Miss Lulu played a dramatic piano roll. Betty Allen said, "The first winner is 256. Well, I did not have ticket number 256. I went through my 5 tickets several times just to make sure, and a very large lady in a purple dress shouted, "That's me! I've won a cake!" And she moved up to the table to select her cake while Miss Lulu played another dramatic roll on the piano, and everybody applauded. And then we started all over again. Betty Allen put her hand into the fishbowl. Miss Lulu played some piano, and then Betty Allen pulled out a ticket and called out a number, and it was not my number. Pretty soon we had made it through almost all the cakes. There was just one left, and it was the pineapple upside-down cake. And even though I would have been very happy to win it, I have to say that the pineapple rings on the top of it seemed the tiniest bit desperate. There's something very sad about pineapple rings. I looked up at Grandfather Burke. He was studying me with a serious look on his face. And then I looked over at Betty Allen. She was holding the bowl with the numbers on it, and she was watching me too. I smiled at Betty Allen, and she smiled back at me. The light was shining off the fishbowl in a very beautiful way. Betty Allen put the bowl back on the table and reached her hand in and pulled out the last ticket. She did not once take her eyes off me. I thought, I've won the last cake. The fishbowl was all lit up with numbers and light. It really was a beautiful fishbowl. And then I remembered the little glass bowls that Betty Allen had used for the ice cream sundaes. I remember sitting at the glass top table with all of the Allens, and I remember Grandfather Burke sliding his bowl over to me and saying, "That's for you, Doodlebug. Take what is offered to you." And then I knew what I wanted to do. And I knew who I wanted to be. I wanted to be the person who sat at that table. I wanted to stay. Betty Allen cleared her throat. She called out the last winning number. And guess what? It was not my number. I did not win a cake. But I did not care. Because I was staying. Chapter 28. And so here I am, Granny, almost at the end of the story. Imagine how surprised I am to find that you are the one I'm writing this for. And speaking of surprise, you will not be surprised to learn that Reverend Obertask is better at dealing with telephone operators than I am. I stood beside him in his office at the Good Shepherd Church while he talked to all the wrong Clarks and then to the right Clark, Ramey's mother. And then finally Reverend Obertask said, "Hello, Ramey Clark. There is someone here who needs to speak to you." And he handed the phone to me. And the very first thing Ramey said to me was that Archie was there with her. She said he showed up at the back door and yelled until they let him in, and he has stayed there. He hasn't left the house at all, and Raimi believed that I would show up again too. When are you coming back? Said Raimi. I had to tell her that you were gone, Granny, and that you were not my granny to begin with, and that you had picked me up in an alley, and that my parents were not the Flying Elefantes, and that my real parents were unknown to me, and that I was not, after all, afraid of heights. I told her everything. And then I had to tell her that I was staying in Georgia. What do you mean, staying? Said Raimi. I mean, I'm going to live here with the Allen family. But what about us? Said Raimi. I started to cry then. The sun was shining into Reverend Obertask's office. It was lighting up his walrus whiskers and the perpetually joyous dust motes. And a long way away in Florida, Raimi was crying too. I could hear her. Reverend Obertask cleared his throat. He said, you know, people in Florida visit people in Georgia quite frequently. I took a deep breath. I said to Raimi, you could come see me. All of you could come see me. I'm only one state away. They came to visit a week later. Mrs. Clark drove Raimi and Beverly and Buddy and Archie over the Florida-Georgia state line. She said it was like being in charge of a traveling circus to have all of them in one car. But they came. And Burke Allen and Betty Allen and I have gone to visit Beverly and Raimi and Buddy in Florida. Archie, king of the cats, goes back and forth. Sometimes he stays with me, and sometimes he stays with Raimi because he is a cat, and he does what he wants to do. Clarence the crow is starting to trust me. He comes when I whistle. He has not yet landed upon my shoulder, but he will, Granny, he will. I have respected your wishes. I have not come searching for you, but I have crossed the Florida-Georgia state line many, many times since we last spoke, and I look for you every time I cross over. I know that you will not be there, but I look anyway. And I dream about you. In my dream, you are standing in front of the vending machine from the Goodnight Sleep Tight, and you are smiling at me using all of your teeth. You say, select anything you want, darling. Provisions have been made. Provisions have been made. I am so happy when you show up in my dreams and say those words to me. Thank you for picking me up in the alley of the Louisiana Five and Dime. Thank you for teaching me to sing. I don't know if you made it to Elfie or not, but I want you to know there is no curse or of sundering upon my head. I love you, Granny. I forgive you.